German shepherds discover a chained ranger in Willow Creek Forest. Hours later, Marines encircle the woods. Two large dogs barked loudly, circling an old oak tree. Deep in the misty woods, a man laid chained to the tree with heavy metal chains. His face was covered in dried blood, his eyes barely open. His ranger uniform was ripped and soaked with dirt. He was Frank Larson, 60, a ranger who had reported illegal miners and paid a heavy price. Hours later, the sound of helicopters roared above. A team of Marines surrounded the entire forest. If you believe those who stand for what's right deserve protection, type honor in the comments. Morning light filtered through the tall oaks of Willow Creek National Forest. It cast soft shadows across Frank Larson's lined face. At 60, his body still held the strength of his army days. Time had carved deep wrinkles around his eyes that had seen war and calm. His rough hands, scarred from years of work, adjusted his gear with care. 2 tours in conflict zones had left marks, a slight limp from a bullet wound in his left leg. Small scars dotted his hands from a long-ago explosion. But the forest had healed his deeper wounds. "Come on, girls," Frank called softly. His 2 German shepherds, Scout and Blaze, trotted beside him. Their ears stood sharp, alert to every forest sound. These retired military dogs were his closest friends since his wife, Clara, died 4 years ago. Scout, with her sleek black and brown coat, had sniffed out dangers in war zones. Blaze, with a faint scar on her ear, had patrolled high-risk areas. The forest and these dogs were his family now. They were his safe place, far from the nightmares that sometimes returned. Frank adjusted his ranger hat, faded but bearing a shiny Forest Service badge. He began his daily patrol through the foggy trails. 20 years as a ranger had taught him to read the forest like a map. Every snapped twig, every scuffed patch of dirt told him something. He could tell animal tracks from human ones. He knew the sounds of a healthy forest versus one in trouble. Lately, the forest had been whispering warnings. Signs of illegal mining had appeared in protected areas. "Someone's been here," Frank muttered, kneeling to inspect fresh tire marks. A month ago, he'd reported Granite Peak mining for digging beyond their allowed zones. His evidence was clear: photos, coordinates, soil samples showing illegal activity. That night, back at his small cabin near the forest, Frank found a note slipped under his door. It read, "Rangers who look too closely don't last long." He filed it with other threats he'd received over weeks. Threats didn't scare him, not after surviving combat. The next morning, Frank woke before sunrise. As always, he fed Scout and Blaze, brewed coffee in an old tin pot, and put on his uniform. The air felt heavy as he hiked deeper into the forest, following a new trail. At the ranger station, Emma Hayes, a 25-year-old new ranger, checked the clock. It was 9:45, and Frank was late for his morning check-in. By 10 o'clock, worry grew in her chest. At 10:15, Scout and Blaze burst through the station door, barking wildly. Blaze's fur was streaked with blood. Emma grabbed her radio. "Possible ranger down. Frank hasn't checked in. His dogs are back alone. He's probably just lost," came the bored reply from Director Coleman. "He's getting old. Might have forgotten the time." Emma frowned. Frank never broke protocol. "I'm going to find him," she said, grabbing her gear. With Scout and Blaze leading, Emma followed them into the forest's eastern section. It was an area Frank had flagged for illegal mining. After 45 minutes, Scout froze, her body tense, growling low. Emma's heart raced. In a clearing, hidden by fallen branches, she saw Frank. He was slumped against a huge oak, chained to the trunk. His uniform was torn, his chest bruised and bloody. Dried blood crusted his face, and bugs buzzed around his wounds. "Frank!" Emma ran to him, checking his pulse. It was weak but there. She tried to break the chains, then noticed something in his pocket. It was a Granite Peak mining ID badge. This was no accident, Director Coleman said later, arms crossed. He stood in the station's tiny medical room. Frank probably got confused, wandered off, maybe chained himself. Emma stared, shocked. "Sir, that's impossible. He was attacked and chained. We found a Granite Peak ID badge," she added. "It was reported missing by one of their workers." Coleman waved her off. He probably picked it up on patrol. Dr. Laura Bennett, the station's visiting medic, stepped back from Frank's wounds. "These aren't from a fall," she said firmly. "The bruises show he was hit multiple times. Likely with a heavy stick." Coleman's eyes narrowed. "Doctor, stick to medicine. This is Forest Service business. We need to call the sheriff." Emma insisted. "This is attempted murder." Coleman stepped closer, his voice low and cold. "Hayes, Frank's been stirring up trouble for months. He's made enemies, people with ties to the state. Even the governor." He glanced at Dr. Bennett. "Doctor, your medical license is up for review soon, isn't it? Paperwork can get tricky." He looked at Emma. "And you, Hayes, could lose more than this job if you push this." After they left, Emma checked the station's security footage. The previous day's recordings were gone. Frank's patrol logbook was missing from its shelf. His photos of the mining sites had vanished from the files. 3 days later, Frank woke up in the medical room. Emma sat by his bed, relief washing over her. "The dogs?" Frank asked, his voice rough. "They're safe," Emma said. "They led me to you." Frank nodded, wincing as he moved. "Not their first rescue." "Who did this, Frank?" Emma asked. His eyes darkened. "Didn't see them all. Got hit from behind. But I heard one voice, Parson. Coleman's deputy. He's been taking money from Granite Peak for months." Emma's stomach sank. Parson was Coleman's closest ally. "I have proof," Frank said. "Flash drive, hidden in my cabin." The door swung open. Director Coleman walked in with 2 security guards. "Larson, good to see you awake," he said. "You're on leave while we investigate your false reports." "What?" Emma stood. "He's the victim. Hayes, one more word, and you're out too," Coleman snapped. He handed Frank a letter. "The board agrees your accusations hurt public trust." That night, the local news ran a story. "Ranger suspended after mental breakdown." The photo showed Frank looking angry during a past forest cleanup. It quoted unnamed co-workers calling him paranoid. Frank watched from his cabin, Scout and Blaze at his feet. With shaky hands, he dialed an old number. No answer, just voicemail. "James, it's Larson," he said quietly. "I wouldn't call unless I had to. If you think silencing a good man is wrong, comment, justice." Emma Hayes didn't quit easily. Her grit had carried her through a tough childhood. She'd earned a forestry degree on scholarship. This ranger job was her dream. Inspired by her dad, a ranger who vanished when she was young. After work, she drove her old Jeep to Frank's cabin. She took back roads to avoid being followed. The cabin was simple but sturdy, with a small flag and an army emblem by the door. Frank sat on the porch in a wooden chair, eyes scanning the trees. Scout and Blaze lay nearby, rising as Emma approached. They relaxed when they recognized her. "I found this," Emma said, handing him an envelope. "It was in that hollow tree you called your secret safe." Frank's hands shook as he pulled out a flash drive. "You're risking everything, kid," he said. "Some things are worth it," Emma replied. They reviewed Frank's evidence together. Photos with location tags, recordings of Parson talking to Granite Peak bosses. Satellite images showed illegal mining spreading. A bank statement linked payments to Parson's account. "I'm taking this to the FBI," Emma said. Frank shook his head. "Coleman's cousin runs the local FBI office. We need to go higher." But carefully. He wrote down a name and address. "Send copies to this man. No emails. Mail only." 2 days later, Emma sent a package to Colonel James Carter, USMC, Fort Bragg, North Carolina. No reply came. Frank was fired from the Forest Service for missing hearings. His replacement was a Granite Peak manager's son. Emma was stuck doing paperwork at a desk. On Frank's last day, he packed his things from his locker. The station was quiet. Some rangers looked away, ashamed but silent. Others mocked the crazy old man who got himself chained. "Leave your badge and gear with Parson," Coleman said coldly. Frank handed them over, his face blank. He'd faced worse betrayals before. As he walked to his truck, Scout and Blaze followed. A faint sound stopped him. A steady thump grew louder. Other rangers stepped outside. Looking up, 3 military helicopters appeared above the trees. They circled, then landed in the station's lot. Marines in combat gear poured out, forming a line. FBI agents and Department of Interior officials followed. A tall officer with gray hair stepped forward. Colonel James Carter took off his sunglasses. Spotting Frank. "Sergeant Larson," he called, using Frank's old rank. The words carried weight in the air. Frank stood taller, instinct kicking in. "Sir," he replied, voice steady despite his emotion. Carter approached. "The Department of Interior has launched a joint operation. This forest is under federal protection during a criminal investigation." He handed Frank a sealed document. "Your reinstatement orders. As a special consultant." Coleman pushed forward. "This is absurd. You can't." "I can." Carter cut in, his voice firm. "Especially when a decorated soldier is targeted for doing his duty." He turned to Frank. "You saved 7 men in the Kandahar raid, including my brother." A younger Marine, Captain Daniel Carter, stepped up. "Larson carried me 2 miles through enemy fire after our convoy was hit." He nodded to the Marines. "3 others here owe him their lives. When we got your evidence, we moved fast." Parson and 2 Rangers tried to slip away. FBI agents blocked their path. "No one harms my men," Colonel Carter said. "Not in war. And not here." He pointed to Frank's badge and gear. "Those belong to Ranger Larson." Emma watched, stunned, as the Rangers who mocked Frank now stood silent. They saw the man they'd underestimated. The young Marine who pushed for the investigation was Frank's rescue from years ago. 6 weeks later, fall painted Willow Creek Forest in red and gold. A ceremony was held near the oak where Frank was chained. Rangers, officials, locals, and Marines in dress blues gathered. The clearing was now a garden with wildflowers. A stone marker stood by the tree, carved with words of honor. The chains were displayed in a courthouse as evidence. The investigation uncovered corruption across 3 states. 5 mining companies and 10 Forest Service officials faced charges. Coleman and Parson were arrested. The FBI formed a task force for forest crimes nationwide. Frank stood in his restored uniform, Scout and Blaze at his side. Colonel Carter pinned a Department of Interior medal on him for bravery in protecting America's lands. Carter said. Emma, now Deputy Director, led the applause. Dr. Bennett, who testified about Frank's injuries, stood nearby. The Military Working Dog Association gave medals to Scout and Blaze for their role in saving Frank. As people left, Frank stayed by the oak. His fingers traced a small plaque on the tree. "Some fight for justice quietly." It read. His medal gleamed, but his calm strength said more. Captain Daniel Carter stood beside him. "You don't remember me from that day," Daniel said. "I was just another soldier to you." Frank nodded. "In a fight, there's no time for names. You kept saying something," Daniel recalled. "The fight finds the brave." It kept me going. The forest seemed to listen. Sunlight broke through the trees in golden beams. Birds sang again, their music filling the air. A hawk soared above, its call sharp and clear. Scout and Blaze sat still, watching like they understood. 3 months later, Willow Creek Forest was renamed Larson Preserve. The papers praised Frank's courage against danger. Each morning, Frank arrived at the station, now run by honest staff. He patrolled with Scout and Blaze, protecting the land he loved.